Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey guys, John Davis, and I am here with the lovely Tamara Zoner as usual. And today we thought it'd be a fun time to actually tell you a little bit about ourselves and about our own background and where we come from and all that kind of stuff like that. We're sitting here with our lovely mugs of coffee, and we are going to be telling you about us. So, Tamara, I'd like to say hello to you first. Hello, Tamara.
Hello, John.
And I'd like to go ahead and get into your story and hear who's Tamara Zoner.
Who is Tamara Zoner? Isn't that the eternal question we're all always asking ourselves, right? Who am I? Farm girl from Michigan. Grew up on a farm and near a lot of family. Like the priority was my mother, of course, right? So she's the Catholic one who got me in and out of religion. But I had a really fabulous upbringing in the sense that we lived on this huge property with my grandparents next door and an aunt and uncle and some cousins on the other side of them. And grew up with 3 siblings, and just, we had the freedom to just run around outside. In fact, we were forced outside most of the time in the right weather. And, like some kids talk about having to come back when the street lights come on. Well, we had to come back when my mom rang the bell because you could hear that bell wherever we were on, like, a lot of acreage. I think when I was a kid, it was close to 80. So, grew up, went to church, good Catholic kid, didn't like it. Liked the singing. I liked the singing a lot. I love to sing. And I started really disconnecting from what they were saying in church. And I think that's kind of where the spirit journey came in, right? So since we're really talking about who we are related to our spiritual path today, I just none of it really made any sense to me, and I didn't feel connected. And I thought that light in the church was very cool. I liked this idea that there was this eternal being, but I worried, these are the things little Tam thought about. I worried, what happens if that candle goes out? Does God disappear? Like, does it really burn all the time? Is it magic? And like I said, I grew up next to my grandparents. So my grandmother was a major influence in my life. She was an artist. And in fact, that painting there, if you're watching this as opposed to listening, is one of hers. And I have many more in my house. Almost all of the paintings in my home are my grandmother's.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, and her art studio is on the same property. So I would run down the hill and go watch grandma teach her art lessons and ask my grandpa to make me puzzles, or which he would just take pieces of cardboard and cut them in various shapes. And I would pretend that was a puzzle. And it was really lovely. A lot of family when we were kids, and I called this area Zonerland, and I still call it Zonerland. Now my brother actually lives on the same property with his family.
Wow,
And I've moved back, which I'll get to that in the story.
The whole Zoner compound.
Yeah, it really is.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. It's amazing. It's an amazing place to live. And as my dad moved out of farming and into local politics, my mother took over what was a produce store and turned it into a seasonal greenhouse. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I moved from, the field picking peas and beans and other such veggies and fruits into the greenhouse and learning how to cultivate flowers and produce from the seed, right? So, and that's still running today. That's still operational. My mom is in fact amazing. At work at 70 something years old, planting seeds for the spring. So, as I grew up, I really didn't feel a deep connection with religion. And I actually felt a deep disconnect from the teachings of Catholicism, because I would look around in my classroom at school at my friends thinking, oh, gosh, poor them, right? They're not going where I'm apparently going because they have a different religion or a different belief. And it was probably my first year at college when my mother, being the good Catholic that she is, told me that she doesn't judge as God judges in relationship to my gay best friend coming and staying with me. And I was like, okay, that's it. That's it. I don't agree at all. And I'm going to cut out the middleman here, as in the church, and kind of figure out what this means to me. And, I've mentioned before, and I don't know on this podcast or just in the interview maybe that you did with me.
Which, by the way, went live today.
Oh, cool. All right. So I read this book, Clan of the Cave Bear, which is very much based in medicine wisdom, right? And so spirits and animal spirits. And it just opened a whole world to me that I didn't even know was okay to think about and to explore, right? Because Catholic. And I thought, well, this gels with me. So, okay, I'm going to explore some more. And so I explored Native American wisdom. And then I went, I was in college at that time. So I took a course on Buddhism and world religions, and Buddhism really struck a chord with me. I liked very much how it wasn't about worshiping a deity, and in fact, following the path, right, to enlightenment. And that made sense to me, right? That made a lot of sense to me. And so I went along my way, and right at the end of my college career, I got into some funky relationship mess, and I left school with a semester left and went to kind of get myself back together. I was working in hotels at the time. I had worked my way through college at a Fairfield Inn, and learned like more customer service. I learned it initially working at the greenhouse with my mom, who taught me how to talk to anybody by shoving me out the store doors and telling me to go talk to that customer, greet them. So I overcame some fairly crippling shyness through that experience. And I moved to Grand Rapids, the west side of the state, and spent a year there. And then I met who would become my husband. And within 6 months of meeting him, I was married. And 3 months later, moved to Singapore with him.
Wow. Culture shock, too. Oh, my gosh.
Big culture shock, a total life shock.
Oh, my gosh.
And he was French. He is French. So, I met a stranger, married him, and moved to the other side of the world in less than a year. And I feel like that's really where life began, right? I grew up right in that moment. And
Fast, too, I'm sure.
yeah, and had to decide who I was, because up until that point, I was just doing the things, right? Graduated high school, did what my parents wanted me to do, got the good grades, was the good third out of four kids, middle child. And then I went to school and started to sort of discover more of what my own beliefs were and explore that, and decide what kind of person I wanted to be. But then that huge life change at 25 years old, moving overseas, and within days, he's now my ex-husband, left. Right? He had to go travel and do his job in international sales. And I was like, oh, well, here I am in this really pretty condo in Singapore with a box for a table and a couch. Who am I going to be now? Like,
right.
who am I without everything I've ever known? And so I found my way to a cab and to the American Women's Association, and I joined this organization because I knew I could either hibernate or get involved. And my mom taught me to push myself out the door and get involved. So I joined a choir. Like I said, I love to sing. So I joined the American Women's Association choir and made some amazing friends, and learned who I was with and without my husband, who I obviously didn't know very well because we had only just met. And over the course of a few years, I got to know him much better and realized I didn't really like him that much. Like, we had some amazing things in common, like food and wine and travel, right? I got to travel all over Southeast Asia and also Europe because that's where he's from. So I had these amazing life expanding experiences, and I was discovering that he was like extremely controlling, manipulative, emotionally abusive, and as a relentless optimist, which I have mentioned, I was like, oh no, like this won't last. Like, this will get better. This will be okay. And it didn't. And it just, we had our first baby in Singapore and moved back to Grand Rapids where his company was based when she was just 4 months old.
Mm.
And then 11 months later had another baby.
Oh, wow. You were
So,
fast tracking this whole thing, weren't you?
well, with my firstborn, it took some time, right? I had some difficulties and had endometriosis and had to go through some surgeries, and then boom, had a baby. And then I thought, well, gosh, leaving it up to nature the first time around, took a long time. So it could take a while. So we'll just leave it up to nature. And she was 7 months old and I was pregnant again.
Oh my God.
So, and here's another massively life-changing experience. I had again reverse culture shock, right? Now I'm back in the States after 5 years. And now I have this husband who's not traveling all the time and two babies and still hours away from family and really on my own trying to figure this whole part of my life out. And this is where really who I am today began emerging. This was me going, well, this isn't what I thought life was going to look like, because this is pretty. I mean, the babies were wonderful, but who my husband was also really showed itself. And that was someone who was far more traditional than I was, who wasn't nearly as open-minded as I thought when we first met, who expected me to have an aperitif ready for him when he got home from work with my two babies, and they should be quiet and the house should be clean.
Mm.
And I should be showered and ready every day before the children are awake. And it was just like, whoa, this is not the life that I was planning on, right?
Mm.
And so I think my second daughter was around two. Yeah, she must have been around 2 years old when I decided I wanted to leave the marriage. And I had kind of been working my way toward it. Like, I became a certified kinder music instructor. So I was trying to find my path because I'd been doing some fun stuff. I was an office manager for the American Women's Association in Singapore. And I had this hospitality and customer service background, but it wasn't like what called to my heart.
Mm.
And in this space that I was at that time, which was pretty unhappy and dealing with, well, they eventually diagnosed me with postpartum depression after my second daughter, but I'm not really sure it was. I think it was marriage depression, right? So they labeled me and gave me some pills, and my husband told me all the things that I should do to make our marriage better. And I tried it. Like, I really did. Well, I didn't actually at that point. I left. I tried to leave, and then found out I was pregnant with our third child.
Oh.
Yeah. So I didn't leave because I didn't want to be a single mom of three little kids. I didn't know what I'd do. Kinder music certainly wasn't supporting me. It was a fun side job. And here was my kind of awakening, like, what the heck? So that's when I tried everything. I started learning about the law of attraction, and I started learning about different spiritual concepts. And my ex wasn't at all spiritual. He was pretty afraid of any kind of universal anything, magic or God, even though he was also raised Catholic, but not to the degree of you, for sure, and not to the degree that I was. And so I was exploring these different concepts. We had watched the movie The Secret together. And after that, I read every teacher's book in that movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I read Jack Canfield. I read Marcy Shimoff. I read all the people's names I can't even remember anymore, and started really saying, oh, okay, this feels good. This vibes with me. And then at that time, after we decided to try to make it work, we got the marriage counseling, and then I got some therapy, which I recommend to everyone. Everyone should always try therapy out in their lives. And I had a therapist tell me, the marriage counselor, actually, the second marriage counselor, say, he's never going to change. So you have to decide if you are willing to stay in this. And I was like, oh, crap. Because I didn't believe in divorce, right? My parents have been married now for 56 years, I think. And it like wasn't an option in my mind at that point. My older siblings had been divorced, and I was like, no, I'm going to do this thing. Like, I didn't finish college. I didn't finish, I didn't get into the career I had dreamed of doing. And marriage doesn't have to be finished. So I'm not going to, this I can do, right? And I did try really, really hard for several years. And when two of my kids are September babies, so just before their birthdays, third and seventh birthdays, third and sixth birthdays, pardon me, we moved to England.
Mm.
So in England, I thought, okay, he's back in Europe. He'll be happy, right? Things will get better. All these Stepford wife things I was trying to do will start working. And they didn't.
Mm.
And he, because he didn't want to change. And I'm not even sure he's capable of seeing the necessary change, right? He actually doesn't need to change. And this is what I started to learn. He, at that point, I accepted as one of my greatest teachers. Who am I in this relationship? And am I going to stay in it and suffocate myself? Or am I going to make the changes that I need to change to be a happy person in or out of this relationship? And so that's when I got into the passion test. I had actually met someone at a networking event while we were still in Grand Rapids. And I just knew, like, that full body awareness that comes over you once in a while. I read her business card and it said certified passion test facilitator. And I didn't know what that meant. I had never heard of it before, but I knew it was important. And so I stayed in touch with her. And before I really even went through the process myself, I had signed up to become a facilitator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I just knew, and I probably have never been as sure of anything else in my life. I just knew that this was the path I was supposed to start walking down. And my husband was actually supportive because he wanted me to help, contribute financially. England's really expensive, and he has a quite expensive wine habit. So, um, yeah. So, high functioning wine habit. And so I ended up going to Norway for 4 days for this training, and it altered the course of my life, or maybe it solidified the course of my life, right? To look at it in a different way, because what I learned there was basically that I had just been continually lying to myself and that I wasn't willing to do it anymore. And I walked out of that 4 days committed to living authentically.
Mm.
And I told my husband so, and it was like, okay, I'll give you a year. I'll give this a year. Either you start taking responsibility for your role in our problems, or this is it, because I won't live this way any longer. Not that I couldn't, right? There's that choice again, can't or won't, and I wouldn't.
Mhm.
And um, and a year later, nothing had really changed. So I came home for a visit with my kids back to the US. First time I was allowed to travel alone with my children. And I had another epiphany, this like, wow, these are people who love me and they're showing me.
Mhm.
I'm staying. And of course, I'm making it sound so much easier than it was.
Oh,
But, you
it
know,
doesn't sound easy at all. It doesn't sound easy at all. I mean, you really threw yourself off the deep end and then had to struggle against the tide to get out the other side.
yeah. And I did, and that was the choice I made. So I committed to, okay, I'm going to live authentically. And that, I think, John, is where my real commitment to my own spiritual life became clear, because deciding whether or not you're going to get divorced when you have 3 children is, I mean, you've had a child and been divorced. I was literally on the floor, like asking, what do I do? Like, is it wrong? Right? Divorce in my head was still wrong. Like, it's wrong to get divorced. And then I had this moment, and I remember so clearly, I was on my yoga mat, right? Not just on the bare floor, but crying. And then this silence kind of came over me, and I heard, when you make a choice that you know for sure is what is right for you, it's right for everyone involved, whether they think so or not.
Mm,
And I had this like peace come over me, like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is this is what I have to do for me and for my children, because what did I want them to witness growing up? You
right,
know,
right.
what did I want them to think about relationships? My parents have been married for 55 or 56 years, but it wasn't good when we
Mm.
were kids, right? I didn't witness a healthy relationship. In fact, any praying I did was often like, please let them get divorced. This is awful and loud and scary. And
You and I were very similar in that regard.
yeah, and so I didn't want that for my own children. I want them to have healthy relationship models. And I have 2 daughters, right? And a son. Both of the way that we respond and react to life as women and men impact both genders, right? So I wanted my daughters to see that women deserve to be treated with respect, and
Mm,
we can stand up for ourselves and make our own way. And I wanted my son to know that that kind of treatment was not okay.
right.
And any woman you're treating that way is going to walk away if she's strong enough, if
Right.
she has the support and that internal core that helps her know she's worth more.
Yeah. And if she's not strong enough, it's just going to get worse.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
exactly. And it really requires a tremendous amount of inner strength to, especially in an abusive, I mean, it takes inner strength to leave any marriage, right? But when you've been in one that's been breaking you down for years, it it takes a little extra something to just go, nope, I'm done. I'm done now. And I still gave him more chances, and he blew them. And so, of course, he did, because he isn't actually capable of an emotionally healthy life experience. And I am. And
Mm.
I had to keep reminding myself that I deserved more and deserved better. And so, as I walked that path, I had become a new passion test facilitator, and I wanted to share that. And it was through that I really got clear on what matters the most to me. And I mean, this is what I teach in the passion test, is aligning your life with what matters the most to you. And I believed that I had to do it. Like, I'm a show not tell kind of a person. So if I'm not doing it, then I'm not going to tell you to do it. Right. So that's true with my parenting. That's true with my coaching. That's true with my speaking. I am going to do the things that I'm teaching and be able to show you from my own example that this works because
Mm.
and it works when, and that's what I'm doing now. So I'm blending this spirituality, which I kind of, aside from this podcast, keep a little quiet, right?
Mm.
It's a little under the covers,
I
because
get that.
I know you do. And everyone, you'll hear about John's under the cover spirituality soon. And because I want people to not be turned off by spirituality, because in this current climate, we're really a disconnected world community, right? We're disconnected from that higher power because we think we have to be so independent and do everything ourselves, and we forget that we're actually all connected, that when we practice that connection to oneness and to love with that capital L, or God, or the universe, or creator, or source, or however you like to label it, then we're never doing it all alone. Then we have access to everything. And I'm still learning that. Like, that's not perfect, right? I'm not seeking anymore, but I'm working daily to remember.
Right. Right. Well, you know, listening to your story, I'm fascinated by one very specific moment. You had come back and you had um, gone to do your passion test, and then you had that moment where you, quote to quote, you heard a voice,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So when you say heard a voice, what do you mean by heard a voice?
I mean, it was internal,
Hmm.
and it was almost just knowing, and maybe my brain interpreted it as a voice.
Hmm.
But I swear, usually it's just knowing for me. When I
Right.
when I have like an intuitive sense of something, I just know.
Yeah.
This was really a clear,
Yeah.
like, when it was so clear, like, when it's true for you, when it's right for you, it's right for all. And it was just very quiet. Everything was very still. This was after hours of crying and yoga and meditation and, begging and pleading, like, help me know what's right. And I got this answer, and it's like in the back of my head, so clear, like, this is right for all.
Yeah.
And
What I
and
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you
it's
off.
from that day, that's how I make my decisions, right? Like, if
Yep.
I dig deep into my heart and soul, and I know for sure it's the right thing for me, then I go forth,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because I know it'll be like, so just a handful of months ago, I left a perfectly secure job because I knew, again, it was time. Like, it was time for me to make a move. And I took the time, I took months to really dig deep and search and hear that answer. And when it's that clear, I believe it. And I do ask for a lot of clarity.
As
And
we
I'll
all
ask for
should.
repeated, like, yesterday you said that this was the clear answer. Are we sure? And then I'll get another yes. Okay.
So and if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
You said you're trying to keep your spirituality on the down low. What's the reason for that, or do you not want to share that?
Oh, no, I'll totally share as I explore the reason for that. And I think part of us kind of coming together was, synchronicity at play, telling us both, well, okay, it's time to not keep it on the down low. But I think for me, I was so unattracted to religion that, and anytime I heard the word God, it was like an immediate turn off.
Mm.
So an immediate turn off, and I was like, I'm not following that person. Even when I was blogging, when I was first a parent, I was doing some parenting blogging, and I came if bloggers, and there's one who's very famous now as an author. She was super religious at the time, and I was like, oh no, I'm not, nope, not interested. Like, I didn't want any Christian anything. I didn't want any reference of God. And so I think it's me more coming to terms or redefining what spirituality is
Right.
for me, and embracing that aspect of me that really is so strong. There really is no Tamara without that deep connection to source.
Mm.
And um, I want though to be a bridge for people. I feel that I am a bridge. So to bring them from their, like, current state of reality, whatever it is, to guide them to the other side, knowing that there's more, that they can consciously create a life that they love, and that tapping into that oneness, that love, that connection to all that is imperative to that process.
Oh, I completely agree with you, because in my belief, it's who we truly are.
Mhm.
We are that inner essence, that voice that you heard. Another thing when you heard that voice, it was the way it was phrased. Can you say it again? What was
Yeah.
it?
Let's see if I get it the same way. But when you make a decision that you know in your heart is right for you, it is right for everyone involved.
All right. All right. So the way you said it before, you ended with it's right for all.
It's right for
And
all. I see what you
and
did.
and to me that was really interesting because that's a very archaic way of saying something. We would normally say it's right for everybody, right?
Right. The way I said it the first time was probably the way I heard it,
Yeah,
because
well,
now
you
I'm
and you,
trying to
you
think of
repeated
it.
it multiple times.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming me putting you on the spot made you extrapolate. So
Yeah. I went into brain mode instead of
right,
just,
right.
you
But
know.
you said it multiple times. And what's right for you is right for all, and it's a very clear message. But it's also it is archaic. So it's to me when I hear something come into my mind that way,
Mhm.
I know that's a very clear and concise way of saying things correctly, because we muddy it with our own language sometimes.
Yes.
And so to me, when I'm tapping into my own source and I hear those things, and I hear the voices too. We're not crazy, right? I
No,
hear
not
them
so, people.
too. But and I wanted to hear the reason I asked you about what that meant for you, because I know what it means for me. When I hear the voices, it's like hearing a thought voice. It's like
Yes.
hearing a thought put to voice, right?
Yeah.
And you don't really hear it, and yet you really hear it.
Right. And
You
it's
know,
not, it wasn't my voice.
right?
You
Exactly right. I totally get that. Totally get that. I'm really. It's amazing to hear your story because you've gone through so much to get to where you are, right? You came up through the Catholic faith, and your mom was very adamant at that when you were a kid, right? But then you had to take your personal power, right? And I think that's the essence to spirituality in general. Spirituality is a personal thing. It
Yeah,
shouldn't be thrust upon you. It should be an inner journey.
absolutely.
And so when I hear your story, you went through this amazing journey. It's a heroic journey if you really think about it. I mean, you did many things. You bravely got into a relationship and you went off to the other side of the world,
I
right?
did.
That's how brave is that? Heroic, right?
I don't know. You might have called it crazy at the time.
Right. But you know what? Our experiences in life are experiences in life. And we're going to come out on the other side. We're going to figure out how we go through. I mean, when on the next episode, because this episode is at 35 minutes right now.
Oh, wow.
Because Tamara is just fabulous.
I can tell. Well, and I do want to say that, um, I decided to become a finisher of things
Oh, nice.
when I came back. So I finished the marriage and
Nice.
I finished my degree. And so now I finish things all the time, uh, and really committed. But our spiritual journey will never be finished,
Right.
ever, right? Even when we leave this form, spirit continues to exist. And so I believe very much that I'm on the path to get it right this life. And I think that's why, I think that's why I see what I don't like and I'm able to pivot because
Mhm.
I know it's not for me. And that's just something I think that my spirit came into this body going, we're going to get it right this time.
Right.
And you might get off the, I won't say the path because I think we're always on our path, but the outcome we're looking for here, sometimes we get off.
Right. Right.
And maybe just to learn some more.
Right. When I look at you, I see someone who plays the karma game aggressively. You're trying to leave the world with more karma points than anybody else, and so it's good, right? and
The overachiever in me.
and I'm gonna give you a run for your money, honey.
All right, John. Well, I can't wait to hear
It's
about that.
on. All
Yeah.
right, all right. So, all right, so guys, you have just met Tamara Zoner. all the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Right.
Yes.
And there's not much ugly. She what she did was beautiful. How she came through her whole process, and she came to the other side, and she came to the real realizations. And I'm really excited to be doing this work with you. This because I have been called for quite some time to get back to my spiritual work after a very decided vacation from it.
Wow.
And I will share a little bit of that in the next episode. So
Yes.
there you
I am excited for that too.
go. Okay.
Very excited.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later. See ya.
Have a
Bye.
good one.
For comments and suggestions, please visit us on Facebook at Spirit Cafe Podcast. Also, find us on YouTube to watch the video of this podcast at Spirit Cafe Podcast. And finally, visit us at spiritcafepodcast.com.